So a little while back I decided to go on a trip to Krakow, Poland. Don't ask me why, it's a long story, but I remembered trying to learn Polish and it didn't really go well. So in this video we will find out if going to the country is actually helpful when learning another language, which most people say. And in the end I will include a summary with the results and what I learned, even though I only went for 7 days. So let's go. I want to start off by saying that 7 days is obviously not enough to learn a language, but maybe it is enough to learn the basics. But honestly, I didn't even learn the basics in these 7 days, and let me tell you why. Anytime I hear someone speak a language that is on my to-do list that I want to learn, perhaps in the future, I get reminded that maybe I should be studying Mandarin or Japanese or whatever, instead of staying in bed and scrolling on my Twitter page for like 2 hours, which I really do. If you're like me and you're really struggling with finding the right time to study a language, then changing your environment can really be beneficial in some way. And so I decided to go to Poland and try to change my environment so that maybe I could study better. Even if your bad habits preventing you from doing things you should be doing now, then changing the environment won't really help at all. Even for me, even though I went to another country, my habits were still the same and I would still wake up and spend some hours scrolling on my social media, on Twitter or whatever. After realizing that for myself, I forced myself into engaging with the language, and so what I did is I booked a Polish lesson on italki. Maybe it's just me, but I feel that if I have to do something, I keep postponing it until the last moment. I really only do it whenever I really feel like I have no other choice. It's almost the same as when you have an exam and you don't study up until the last day, and then you realize, oh shit, I should really be studying now, so you study on the last day. So I decided I would use this to my advantage by booking a Polish lesson, so that theoretically there would be no way out. And as soon as my Polish teacher joined the online classroom, she started speaking Polish. I greeted her with the only word I know, which is hello. Dzień dobry, and then she just started speaking Polish for the entire 30 minutes, even though I was an absolute beginner. So my expectation was that maybe she would use a little English and I could do a little English, but no, she just went full on Polish, aka full immersion. So for 30 minutes straight I listened to a language that I knew maybe 10 words of, and speaking about 10, we counted up all the way to 10 on our hands. And I was both embarrassed and fascinated by the fact that the pronunciation for the word 3 is so hard, but also I never realized it is so hard to do something as simple as counting up to 10 in a foreign language. But still, I believe this method of full Polish is a great method, and let me tell you why. When you decide to learn a language, the first thing you do is probably order a book online in English that teaches you Polish. But in my opinion, what it really does is it teaches you about Polish. It doesn't teach you how to speak. And so the book promises you that you'll get to an intermediate level once you finish the book, but I don't think that's really true, because what the book is really doing is providing you value about the language. The real magic happens when you put this knowledge into context, because anyone can have the knowledge, but putting it into context is really another skill. So when I was in Poland, I didn't have a book, but I didn't have the context, aka the world around me. I did have plenty of stores, and when I went into the store, I would say to the staff, dzień dobry, dziękuję, do widzenia, and you get the idea. And I think the problem with modern language learning is that it is way too easy to just grab a book and acquire infinite amounts of knowledge on the internet or with books, but then it is really easy to just get stuck in this phase and you never get to actually applying this knowledge with context, aka using the language and building this whole other skill. So besides, it is uncomfortable if you go outside of your comfort zone and start speaking with other people. So the real question is, how do you do it? How do you apply this knowledge and put it into context, aka how do you speak with people and with strangers? How do you approach people? So how do you just approach someone? Again, context is important. For example, in the afternoon I went to a local tour office to try and book a tour to Auschwitz. And in this context it's completely different, because here I am a potential customer, so my interaction is totally different than when I decided to go back to my room and I decided to go to the study room. Because there I saw another person and I decided I wanted to try and initiate a conversation. So what is the plan? Well, all you need is one phrase to start the conversation, to set the context. And after that you just keep on going. So as she walked by, I stopped her and I asked, "Hey, do you speak English?" And she said, "No, only a little bit, why?" And then I said, "Do you know at what time this place closes?" And then a conversation happened, and well, that's basically what I did. Also, this girl was not Polish, and she knew just about as much as I knew in Polish. But the same thing applies if you do meet a native speaker. For example, at my work, the truck driver at the supermarket, he's from Poland, and here's how I started a conversation with him. So I saw him and I said, hey, and I asked him, do you speak Dutch? Because he spoke English. And then he said, no, I don't speak Dutch. And so I asked him, oh, well, where are you from then? And he answered, I'm from Poland. And so I said, oh, dzień dobry. And that's basically how the conversation started. And now every time I see him, I'm like, hey, dzień dobry, how are you, whatever. The hard part is starting the conversation, and after that you just keep going. I do get nervous too when I do this, but also I think that exposing yourself to these situations can be really fun. I'm actually thinking about making a video where I approach strangers and I try to initiate a conversation, and maybe I'll also somehow display my heart rate so that you can see what happens and what I think and really how you should be doing this, because maybe it could be interesting. So let me know what you think. What if they don't speak X, or what if they think this about me? Well, the reality is it doesn't matter because people don't care. For example, in Poland I am just another foreigner. People are living their own life and they don't care about me. And if you want to change something, if you want to get better in the language, then you have to start the conversation. You have to think about your own benefit and then use the people around you to help you. And that sounds maybe a bit rude or something, but you get the idea. As a matter of fact, I was really ready to let that girl go and just think to myself, you know what, I'll just stay here and get my work done and she can do whatever she is going to do. But then I thought the worst case scenario is that she will not be interested in talking with me, and that is totally fine, so why don't I just give it a shot? The worst case scenario is actually never what holds you back in social interaction. Because what really holds you back is what will they think about me, or what will they say, or I don't know, how do I react? And it's basically the unknown, and if you don't know what will happen next, then you get scared and you don't want to engage in the interaction. But actually, people don't really care about it, because even if the conversation is not going well, after a day or so, they have already forgotten about you, and it is always worth trying. So here's an example of me when it didn't go as planned. On the 6th day I decided to go to a Vietnamese store to get something to eat. And I heard that the staff was speaking Vietnamese, so I came up with a plan. As I went back to return my bowl, I asked one of the staff members, hey, do you speak Vietnamese? But it turned out her English wasn't too good and my Polish wasn't so good, so she responded to me in Polish, but I didn't understand what she was saying and she didn't understand what I was saying. So I tried it again. I said, are you Vietnamese? She said, yes. And then I asked, you from North Vietnam or South Vietnam? And by the way, this is because in Vietnam there's different dialects, and I was just interested trying to start a conversation about whether they were speaking Northern dialect or Southern dialect. So she said, oh, North. And I was, oh, okay. But then I felt really nervous and I didn't really know what to say, and I was afraid she wouldn't understand me because her English wasn't too good. And so I felt this flight or fight feeling, where I thought, do I engage more or do I get out? And I decided to get out of the store. As I left the place, I realized I should have chosen to fight, because the other two girls that were there and who took my order, they did speak English. I could have just switched the conversation and tried to have a conversation with them. But I chose to go away because I felt nervous and I felt the pressure and I had to get out. But perhaps the most noticeable thought that I had was really, I felt motivated to study Vietnamese again. After having just a conversation, not even in Vietnamese, but with Vietnamese people, and I heard the language and I got really motivated. And so I think social interaction in the language is really the best motivator for language learning, hands down. Now let's be honest, what I learned in terms of Polish is maybe the numbers, some days of the week, some greetings, how to say thank you and goodbye, and that's about it. Oh, also a few vocabulary for like mosk, chleb, sklep, dom, like simple words that I saw. But in terms of learning a language, I learned a lot of things, and here's a summary of what I learned. The environment in which you are learning is actually 50% of the process, but you can use this to apply the knowledge that you gain from traditionally studying. So for example, if I've gotten a book about Polish, then I could have used my environment, Poland, to try and apply the things that I learned from traditional study, aka using the textbook. Immersion is really useless without context. For example, I had a 30-minute lesson in Polish and all I remembered is the numbers. And you know why? Because when I went to KFC on the same day, I remembered I had to get my receipt with my number on it, but the receipt didn't come out of the machine, and there was no monitor that displayed the numbers. So all I had was the staff, and they were speaking and they were calling out the numbers. And my number was 53, and I know that 3 in Polish is whatever, that I cannot pronounce the number. But so all I had to do was listen to the number when it got called out, and that is the context that I had, and that's why I remembered the numbers. Learning a language is actually very different than learning how to use a language. For example, I can learn Polish here and then go to Poland and apply the knowledge that I gained here and use it there. Or what I can do, and what I did in this video, is go to Poland and then encounter things and then learn it. And I think both ways work, but what is important is that you do both in a good balance, because it's just way too easy to get stuck in one. For example, I could be learning for 3 years here and still not know how to use it because I never went to Poland or talked with people in real life. So it's important to have a good balance between the two. Using a new language can be very uncomfortable, but also very rewarding. And I think engaging in social interaction in a new language or in a new environment is actually the best motivator there is for learning a new language. And finally, don't overthink. Your brain is way too good at coming up with excuses why not to do something, and remember that if you don't do something, that means that nothing is changing. And if you want to change, if you want to get better, then you have to start doing something. You know, everyone is living their own life, and if you come up and mess up, they don't care really, and neither should you. Just do it for yourself. So that was my trip and the lessons that I learned from going alone to Poland and learning some Polish. Hopefully you got some value out of this, and if so, then thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.